man. Legacy Lounge. Sometimes people want to talk.
We have an incredible guest here.
What's up, brother?
The definition of the Legacy Lounge is the stuff that he's putting together. He's a great community leader. His story is amazing.
All right, welcome back to the lounge. And today we got an absolute incredible one for you. We are expanding the topics that we have, and we have two people that absolutely bring value to everybody around them. And this is going to be no different today. Shamika and Ramon Payne, welcome to the lounge.
Man, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, we're going to go back to get a little context of where you guys are, but the topic at hand is autism. Autism Awareness Month is when this comes out. Let's start there. What does Autism Awareness Month mean to you now that you're in the position that you are?
It's crazy because as a program director with after school programs, you deal with various types of kids and individuals. I've heard about IEPs. I know about IEPs. I know about all the little PBIS structure systems that are put in place for kids. And as you learn about it, you're trying to do your best to support it as much as you can to bring awareness. But it hits on a completely different level when you have a child that is on an autism spectrum. And so it becomes increasingly more important to bring awareness to it, because now not only are you doing it for other kids, but you're doing it now for your own child. And so autism awareness now for me, like anything else, it's just to try to help people understand it, recognize it, have more patience and understanding for it, because there's a lot of misconceptions, not fully realizing and understanding what it means and what it looks like, why kids do what they do. So you just want to make sure that people have that understanding, people have that lens to look through, and that patience to understand and support it. And so that's, for me, the biggest thing now with autism is just to really help increase the knowledge and share love. And that's the blue heart and the puzzle pieces, and that's really kind of what autism represents for me.
Amazing, Shamika.
Yeah, I think for me, I would say, well, at first, when you even think about autism, it's like, what is autism? Mm-hmm. It's a huge spectrum. So the technical term, autism spectrum disorder. And on that spectrum, they say, the ranges of symptoms or features are very different for everyone. They'll say you see one autistic person, you can't compare it to the next, which we have found to be very true.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with situations like sleep habits, eating habits, behavioral and social habits. And then when you ask one parent, like, well, what did you do when, they were staying up till 3:00 in the morning and then going to sleep, and now you have to get them up for school. And then they say, oh, we did this. And then you try that and you're like, yeah, that didn't work for me.
Yeah.
Or when, in the case with our son, dealing with his eating, he has very poor eating habits. He has sensory issues. So a lot of that comes with him only wanting certain textures, certain things that are a certain color. There's times I make food and he looks at it and he's like, his eyes say it all. So I'm like,
yeah,
okay,
what
so
is this?
when thinking about the spectrum of autism, it's just that, a spectrum, and it's an array of very different, I don't want to even say issues, but very different behaviors. Yeah. And that some of those things are cognitive. Some of them are, like I said, social, behavioral, things that are happening in the body that we can't even see. And then it comes out in different ways for each individual.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Amazing. And even before we get into the background, Chris, have you been around? Do you have, what kind of experience do you have around autism, if any?
Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of unique that I even put two and two together. But when I asked you about James Shelby, they have 4 kids, and one of their, I think it's their oldest son, has autism. To your point, there's different levels of it, and so I think for James' son, it's you kind of almost wouldn't know.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
That's awesome.
But it for me, it's just I have so many different friends that have kids, and I've spent time with some friends that have autistic kids. I think it's just more about the different levels and understanding different levels. When I got your email, one of the things that stood out to me is, you'd mentioned just what that process looks like when you're going to different households and having gatherings.
Yes.
And when you're maybe around, families that have other kids, just kind of what that looks like.
Yeah.
I want you to kind of touch on that.
For sure.
Because you said a word that I feel resonates more than anything, and that's the word love.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You just got to just, that's kind of where I'd be coming from is, man, I'm just here to love on you.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
So touch on that. I want to hear kind of what your guys' story, looks like in regards to, you already mentioned the food thing, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, that sounds like all kids.
All kids, right? Yeah. 'Cause sometimes it's even hard to determine, like, is this just regular toddler behavior?
Right.
Or
That's the
is
funny
this-
part.
Yeah.
Is it's like which is which, sometimes.
And sometimes it's a combination of both. Our son is 4, and typical 4-year-olds, they want what they want. They want to do what they want. They don't care about anything. And to that sense, I'm like, okay. But then there's other things where clear as day, like he's having certain issues, and those things attribute to the disorder. But in regards to like our social activity, so we are very social individuals. I'm a little bit more introverted than my husband, but we're used to going to gatherings and going to our friend's house or being at all these different events. But once Jaxon came into the picture, I think the very first thing I noticed was when we went to the pumpkin patch, or we went to Apple Hill. And this was like, he was born in 2019. So from the time he was born till when COVID hit, he's been at home.
Wow.
And then that's another reason why I kind of noticed certain things, but I know we'll get into that. But we went to Apple Hill, and immediately we were like at the pumpkin patch, and I could feel him getting tense. I was holding him, and I could feel him getting tense. And by this point, we had not gotten a diagnosis yet.
Nope.
He was still pretty young. And
Like how old?
he was
He
probably
had to be a
around
year and a half.
maybe like a year and a half.
Wow.
Because he got diagnosed at 2.
Yep.
And before that,
We had to wait. It was 18 months when it was
Yeah.
at 18 months when we recognized that something was up. But the
Wow.
doctors were like, you need to let it manifest a
Yeah.
little longer. Once they're about 2 years old, then we can really test
Is
for
that
it.
is that normal that you find out later? Is there any precursors? Like I'm learning from day one
So
here.
the crazy thing about it is after really now, like I said, being in this in the realm of kids and children and seeing kids, but now seeing the back end and like the start to finish type thing, the research about it is that there are so many people and kids and adults who don't get diagnosed until like they're in their teens, late teens, adulthood.
Wow.
Right. And so I look back on it now and I think back to like when we were in high school, you thought like special education classes, it's SPED, right? So that's the abbreviation for it, SPED. And so you typically just thought, okay, they have trouble learning. Like they don't know how to add 1 + 1 = 2. That's what they don't. That's why they need special education classes. Not really understanding that it was classes for the social and social emotional, the cognitive development of certain kids, and autism being one of those. So then I start to think back. I'm like, now knowing what autism is, there are so many people who I saw who had little quirks and little things about them that they would do, different ways that they interacted, and you kind of could tell they're a little socially awkward, like they're a little off, like he's not all there a little bit as far as how he's interacting, and that's just how you looked at it, and you go, they might have been on the spectrum. They probably had just autism
I
the entire
literally
time.
had a grown up, won't say his name, somebody that we know, literally kind of joke about it. He was like, I've been reading some stuff. I believe I'm on the spectrum, and never know, like fully owns a company, everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. They're fully functional autism adults out there.
Yeah.
Because that's the way that the spectrum is.
Yeah.
Right. And it is so there's different tiers, right? And so there are people who are on the lowest end of it who just have these just unique quirks to them. but can completely function, completely take care of themselves, completely own businesses. And you could just look at them and go, something's just a little different, and that could exactly be what it is. It is so weird and unique. And again, and that's what's crazy is that's why, and I think too, that's why they do puzzle pieces to represent, the shirt that she has on, the shirt that I have on. The puzzle pieces are a representation for autism. And I think now, because of when you think of a 1,000-piece puzzle set and you dump all those puzzles out, each one has its own unique imprint to put that picture together. And that's literally what autism is.
Wow.
Every single kid has a different imprint. And you're just trying to figure out what that is to put the pieces together.
Incredible.
To have a fully functionable young man, young woman, adult, and help them transition. And so it's just their levels of behavior and things that come along with it. But it's just that. It's literally trying to put all the pieces together to help them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Even in social settings, having individuals who, when the child might have a meltdown, we experience that a lot with Jaxon. And a lot of that is behavioral. Some of it is sensory, where going back to the social settings, where we're in environments where it might be too many people, the music is playing, there's this noise over here, this noise over here. And from my understanding of what I've learned is that when you have a sensory processing disorder, it's hard for you to then funnel out all of the noise to focus. So you and I are having this conversation, but then I can hear him typing over here. I can hear this. I can hear the cars outside. All those things play in the factor, but I can tune those things out and still be attentive. Someone on the spectrum may have that more difficulty depending on where they fall in that, but then they have to now be intentional, and that's a behavior that they have to learn because it doesn't come naturally. So then when we get into social settings, and for us, we're just hanging out, chilling, and all that. But for Jaxon, he gets then overwhelmed because there's the conversations over here, the kids might be over here, we might have the TV on, there might be music playing, and then for him, you could tell where he's trying to process it all, and he's trying to focus on what he wants to focus on, but then he can't. So then it's sensory overload. And then at that point, his body then takes full control. And then he's like, it turns into a whole meltdown. And it might start with him whining a little bit. Then it might, if we aren't too attentive immediately, then it turns into him might falling on the ground, kicking and screaming. And then at that point, there's no consoling him. He has to then work through it.
Wow.
And as we've gone through this journey, we've recognized that there's just some environments we cannot put him in. And then that makes it difficult because, we have 2 older children.
Yes.
And the amount of social things that they want to do, I'm like,
Give me an example of that. What do we know as
Sporting
no
events.
fly?
Sporting events.
Really?
If so,
Sports
recently,
family with sporting events being a trigger.
And
so
trigger.
Wow.
So
Well,
if we wanted to go to a football game,
Uh-huh.
right? Let's say we want to go to a Niners game. That is not going to happen because there's
Wow.
no way that he is going to be able to sit in a seat
Yeah.
and be stationary for that period of time without needing to go, move,
Get
do,
up, walk
or
around.
be triggered.
Well, then we should applaud Jaxon because he's saving you money
He
and,
is. He does.
and frustration because that's a horrible stadium. Okay.
I love it though. I love it.
We do. I mean, a lot of the
he's,
time.
he's saving you an 8-hour drive, but go ahead.
No, a lot of the times, I mean, because the older boys, we don't want them to feel like they can't do anything.
Yeah.
So we are intentional about making time with them.
sure.
So we do things with the 4 of us, and we just get a babysitter for Jaxon. And then there's some times where we divide and conquer,
Yep.
and I'll just you take them, I'll stay home with Jaxon, or vice versa. We have the luxury of having a built-in babysitter at the teenager, so he's like, I don't want to go to Johnathan's game today. I'll stay home with Jaxon.
That's
great.
Yeah.
Yes, you will. So we work around it, but it makes it difficult because we want to do things as a family. And as Jaxon gets older, we don't want him to look back and be like, well, why wasn't I there? Why I couldn't do those things? And which we can always explain to him, but it makes it difficult because we are a family of 5 and we want to operate that way. So.
And hopefully it's just the stage he's in now.
Yes.
So we're hoping
It's a season.
I'm
I'm hopeful.
the season that he's in.
That was the question I was going to ask of you guys because I'm just meeting you guys for the first time. I was going to ask, is Jaxon your only child? It's not.
Yeah, give the context of the family
I
dynamic.
would say, for people listening to this, I would imagine it's probably a huge struggle having only one child that would be autistic, meaning like you guys have some support in the sense of what you just mentioned, where you said you mentioned like one of your oldest can watch Jaxon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking that you could probably have your hands full because I'm imagining you're learning so much.
Yeah.
Yep.
On,
It is.
on the fly.
It is completely on the fly. And so to your point, yeah, so we had our oldest, Jeremiah. So he's 14 going on 15 this year. Will be a freshman at Intercom next year. And then we have our middle son.
No, go ahead, sir.
Oh,
That was a
did I
surprise.
say something?
That was a surprise to me. Yeah.
I mean, he'll be
He'll be a freshman.
yeah.
We battling on schools. I like
This
this. I
is
like
great.
No,
this.
I do. I want him to go to Intercom because
That's what we're hoping.
we live in the area and
That's-
it would make my life easier.
I love this. I love this.
Wait,
I
wait,
gave
wait,
up
wait
on
a
the
minute.
struggle a
Wait a
long
minute.
time ago.
So wait, were you happy to hear that?
Yeah, I was surprised.
She's been
Oh,
I'm
because he's
I've
been
kept
saying
the
other
door
schools,
open.
and I'm
Yeah,
like, sir,
I've
that's
kept the
not in
door
our
open.
area.
What was
love
the other
this.
school?
So
I'm just curious.
initially we were looking into Folsom, and then we were looking into Capital Christian as well, which we still are. And so those doors for me are still open because being that I've played, being that I've been around, I know people. I know now everything that it takes to get to where you're trying to get to. So for him, he's a natural talent at football. He has some things that he has to work on when it comes to his work ethic. But he has natural talent, natural abilities. Every time somebody has seen it, they're like, oh, they enjoy it, they marvel in it, they give him his compliments. So
I'm with Shamika. It's on record now. Video.
So I told him,
Sika.
my
I'm trying to get
job
into
now
Sika.
as a parent is I want to help you focus on your next 4 years to give you an opportunity to play another 4 years.
Yeah.
What
Right.
position does he play?
Plays wide receiver, wide receiver DB. So
Kid's
he's
talented, man.
Yeah, he's got it. So Folsom was a place as a wide receiver. They aired out,
pump
air
'em.
raid. They got guys going, quarterback, cycle, receivers out there. They're getting them all day long. And so they have a great program when it comes to that. And then I know a lot of people who are connected with Capital and what they're building over there. And that's important to me too, as far as the foundation and the people who are going to be in charge of making decisions and people that I can trust to say, you're going to do right by him over these next 4 years. So trying to, again, just put him in a position where your 4 years of high school will give you the best opportunity to get another 4 years because he wants to go to LSU. So I'm like, all right, there's work you got to put
Dang.
into. There's some work
You have to put in some
you
work,
have to put in some
son.
work.
Love
LSU don't take puppies.
Hell no.
They take bulldogs and pit bulls. And so if you're going to be one of those bulldogs and a pit bull or a Rottweiler, then you're going to need to put yourself in these next 4 years in a position to go there. So that's him. And then the middle son is a baseball player, true and true. Johnathan,
JP
he
in the
just had his
house.
birthday
Shout out.
2 days ago. So he just turned 11. And yep, shout out to JP. So he is baseball through and through. He is a kindred spirit of me as a kid. Just loved being outdoors, loved being with his friends.
Crazy?
Hate being stuck inside.
Right, right.
I am. I know he's crazy. He's crazy too now. It's starting to kick in as he keeps getting older.
He's the emotional leader on
Yeah.
that stack team when everybody's cheering. So you've been following that thing. It's
Yeah.
his son
Oh,
that
nice.
leads that thing. Man.
Yeah, so he's awesome. And so with those two, that's what kind of, you could see the difference in those two in their upbringing when they were 1, 2, 3 years old. And that's where when Jaxon came into the fold, now being 4 years old, we kind of hit the reset button. And that was even kind of, it was like we were, do we want to go for the girl? We're good. We're done. And then it was like, I'm pregnant. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Boom, surprise.
We didn't plan that one. We didn't talk that one through yet. Okay. So when he came, and like I said, it was immediate that once it started getting into that age range where you could start to see those mannerisms that you were used to, that you've seen with the other two boys, and you weren't seeing those. And I think to Rene, to your point, it started off with just the call and response of him recognizing his name.
Yeah.
Just calling his name and him making eye contact with you. And you were just like, oh, that's not happening. It was like,
Or-
okay, maybe.
And I
Something
feel like
else.
some of the things were a regression because he on par, like up until maybe 11 months, he was hitting all the milestones and all the things. And then maybe around 10, 11 months, I started notice. Well, maybe like 9 months, I started noticing he was having trouble kind of sitting up. Like he went from sitting up, crawling and doing these things to like when he would sit up, he would be wobbly. And then I'm like, okay, well, maybe he's just, I don't know what it is. And because I'm like trying not to guess. And then maybe around 10, 11 months, he then stopped responding to his name. And then, or even sounds, like he would have these toys and I would play the sound. And before, when he was a little bit, babies, they like immediately start shifting their head to the sound. He stopped doing that. And so I'm like, okay. And then he went from babbling and like repeating. I would say, hi, you say, mama, where's your eyes? He would do all these things and he stopped completely doing that. It started regressing. And so for me, I'm like, who? And I remember
eye contact too was a big thing.
Eye contact was a big
eye
thing.
Contact.
But I remember specifically a video of Johnathan when he was 10 months old, and I was saying something to him, and he was going, no, shaking his head. And so then at that time with Jaxon, I'm like,
He's not doing any of that.
He's not saying anything. It's weird. And I was like, I told Ramon, I'm like, and then I go back in my head, I'm like, okay, it's COVID. We've been in the house.
Yeah. He was premature.
He was premature, and I'm like,
premature.
so all these things that play, and I'm like, well, he doesn't really
5
need,
weeks early.
He doesn't need to tell us anything because he got other adults in the house that'll do everything for him. His big brothers did everything for him. And so I was like, okay, I'm not going to read too much into it. And at that point, autism wasn't even a thought in my mind.
Yeah.
I did think maybe like speech delay or something like that.
Yeah.
So at 12 months, I reached out to his pediatrician and was like, hey, this is the things that I'm noticing, and specifically with his speech. And so he's like, well, all the kids they progress at different rates and all these things. And then
All
back
the
to the things of
basics.
you've been quarantined, he hasn't had much interaction. Because by the time the older boys were 6 months, they were in daycare because we worked.
Yeah.
So he wasn't getting any of that social interaction outside of us.
Yes.
And so at 12 months, he's like, let's just give it another 6 months and we'll see. So at 18 months, then the regression was like continuous. And then he started having other things where he would stim and he would get tight and he would do these things with his body.
Yes.
And so at 18 months, the pediatrician put in the referral for speech therapy. But then we're in COVID, so then it has to be telehealth and virtual.
no.
And I'm like, lady, I don't know what you want me to do with this boy. I'm not the specialist.
Yeah.
So we did 6 months of speech therapy and that too. And by the end of that, she said, I don't want to diagnose him. She said, based off of the last 6 months. No, first of all, his evaluation for speech therapy at 18 months, he was communicating at a level of an 8-month-old.
Wow.
And so he had a speech delay.
Wow.
And then by the end of the at 6 months, approaching his second birthday, she said, I can't give him a full evaluation because he will need to get evaluated, but I believe he's on the autism spectrum. And like my heart sank. And I'm like, okay.
Was that the first time you heard the word autism? Was that conversation?
In that context, I've heard it before. And when you think, when I've heard it before, I've heard of like these extraordinary beings that they're very intelligent and they can play the piano at 2 years old and all these things. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, autism. But then I wasn't seeing any of those other behaviors that to me seem extraordinary. So I was like, okay, I don't know what that means. And so we put in the referral. We did go through the process. They usually they give you like this packet. It's like 10 pages long, and it's just question after question after question.
Do they do that? Can he do this? Have you heard him say this? Does he say this? How many times does he do that? It's long.
Do they line up things? Do they do it's so many things? And so even in that is a trigger. It's like, whew, okay.
Because you're going through it. The hard part about it is you're going through it and you're going, he doesn't do that. He doesn't do that.
No.
He doesn't do that.
No.
These are like basic things. You're like, he doesn't do that. He doesn't do that. And you're just like,
yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine that the anxiety, stress, anger, you name those emotions for you guys was probably very challenging in testing as you're going through that.
Absolutely. Like we said, Jaxon was like one of those surprises. I don't want to say he was an oops baby because that's just so bad. But he was a surprise. We were not planning, okay? And because Johnathan had just finished kindergarten, we were not paying for daycare.
I was like, save that
We
money.
were like, we are for free.
Say that
And then
money.
we were
No
on
more
the
daycare.
we were on the journey to buy our home, so
No
it was
more
like
diapers.
we're good.
Yeah.
And then I was like, boom, pregnant. I was
Man.
All that packing you got to do for an infant.
Oh.
like, we didn't have no babies, nothing. We got rid of everything.
They was making sandwiches for themselves and cereal and cooking.
Dang.
I was
So
like, we
in
good.
my mind, I'm thinking
we
like,
in a good
okay.
life.
And then I think because people have asked me, how was it having a baby at 24 versus at 34? And I'm like, completely different.
Yeah. Oh, no question.
24, I was younger, but we were broke.
Yeah.
I mean, we got married while I was still at Sac State. I
Yeah.
was in my junior year at Sac State when we got married.
Wow.
And then the week before my last semester, I found out I was pregnant. Wow. And so I finished my last semester at Sac State, and I walked in commencement 5 months pregnant.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, I don't know how I did that. But so at that age, I'm like, okay, whatever. We figured it out. 34, we're different, successful financially. We're better now and all those things. And so I'm like, oh, we got this. Then I'm like, dang, I'm old. I'm tired. And I feel that way now. I'm like, Jaxon, I have to work out. I have to stay strong because the boy keeps me on my toes. Then you have to think about the teenager and then the toddler. And then you got the one in the middle. I'm like, whew. So all that to say, but when I think about getting the actual diagnosis, so even that, the psychiatrist does the evaluation. It's like a 2-hour appointment, and they're just going, same thing, asking you questions. They're evaluating him, doing all these things. And so she basically ended the evaluation with saying, based off of his behaviors and all those things, I'm going to diagnose him with autism spectrum disorder. She also gave him the diagnosis of global development delay. And with that meaning all of the areas, there's like 4 or 5 areas that they test. He was delayed in, I think it's 5. He was delayed in 4 of them.
Wow.
Meaning his speech, his cognitive response. There was something to do with his
Motor skills. I
the
think.
motor skills. And so, and then she said the fact that he does not have speech, we can't give him an IQ test. So she gave him the global development delay. And the way it was explained to me was that opens up more doors for resources. Kind of, sort of. Which initially I feel like it did in the beginning. It did. They gave us speech therapy, occupational therapy,
and then ABA services.
ABA services, the adaptive behavioral analysis therapy. And then from there, I got to put in a referral for the Alta Regional Center, which is like it's not a county program, but it's a big program that helps all individuals, and if you get in early, it'll follow them for the rest of their life.
Wow.
Yes.
And so with Alta
early diagnosis is key,
is
and that's
great.
why I said it's
Love
weird because we found out there's so many people who don't.
Yeah.
And I think a lot has to do with accepting the fact that my kid may have this. It's like, no, they're just a little different. You know, you kind of just want to shut it off because you don't want to go down that road of acknowledging it. But the sooner, they always say the sooner the better. And like we were commended. Like every time we come across somebody that was on the professional side of support, they were like, it's great that you diagnosed so early.
Even
it's
the
great that you
psychiatrist
find
said
out
it.
this early. It's great. It's great. It's great. And they keep reiterating it. So many people don't. So many people don't. And then even just like our research shows we've watched, everybody's like, there was this gentleman, to your point, didn't get diagnosed. He was like, what, 60 something, 70 something?
Oh, on Love on the Spectrum on Netflix, yes. Even the psychiatrist said it. She was like, he's 2 years old now. She's like, I just diagnosed a client who is 55.
Yeah.
Insane.
And he had got diagnosed with so many other things, masking as that, but ultimately, and I think it's interesting to point out too that years ago, because now people are like, autism is like come out of nowhere. Autism has been a disorder for a long time. It just was called something else. There were things like I said, sensory processing disorder, a disorder called Asperger's disease.
Was the biggest thing.
And so what I think over the years, because now they all kind of mirror the same kind of behaviors, they've now reclassified as autism spectrum disorder.
Oh,
and
wow.
then that's why they say that's where the spectrum comes from.
Yeah, that's where that spectrum comes out. And then there's tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. And then just depending on how they assess and how your child performs, Tier 1 is your lighter, right? Like you might have some struggles, some delays, some this, some that, but you're okay. Tier 2, you need a little more support. There's some things that you're dealing with, that you're struggling with, that you're going to need assistance and aid and with. Tier 3 is the more severe, of where it's like there are a lot of delays or things that are not happening yet, and you're going to need a lot of resources. And that's where Jaxon falls in.
He falls in level
Jaxon
3.
falls into that level 3 because he's still nonverbal. He still needs that cognitive development and understanding the call and response, the knowing how to do the simple tasks of biggest thing for him is to come into school when I drop him off and teach him how to open his backpack, put his lunch away, and then go wash his hands. Like, so it's little basic things that you're just like,
Eating
we
with the
take
utensil.
eating
Brushing
with the
your
utensil.
teeth.
Yeah.
Putting on your socks and your shoes.
Yeah, he hates brushing his teeth.
Wow.
He's used a utensil once.
Yeah, I mean,
He'll
he don't even like you to feed him. He's like, give it, just put him
So
out.
it's like those little milestones that we kind of take for granted and just think come naturally. For a kid that's on the spectrum, it's a complete struggle.
He ate spaghetti last night, and he ate like 3 noodles, and I was like overjoyed.
Excited.
Because he doesn't eat anything soft,
Yeah.
bright colored. He's like a chicken nugget, fries. He's now getting into pizza, which I'm like loving, because it's like something different. But he ate noodles, and I was like, he ate noodles.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's like the smallest
things.
things.
Amazing.
Oh, dude, it's such a win.
So to your point, sorry to cut you off, but to your point, for somebody like listening to this, they commended you guys because you weren't sweeping it under the rug.
Yes.
And so the advice would be,
Do not sweep it under the rug.
do not sweep it under the rug.
As soon as you see anything that looks and feels different, investigate.
Yeah.
And find out, because the thing is because of the spectrum, because of the tier, you don't know where that child is at on that. So it could be just something that just requires a little bit of support, or it could be something that requires more significant support. And so the end all goal as a parent is to set your child up for success.
Exactly.
And so by ignoring it, you don't do that, because again, being in the school spectrum and working in after school programs, you just see the natural reaction from kids who don't know, right? The natural reaction of kids is to either kind of laugh at, kind of poke fun at, and it's bullying to a degree, but they're not really understanding that they're bullying. They're just like, that's weird. Why are you doing that? No, you keep trying to come over here and do this. Stop. Go away. And not knowing that they have a different sensory. Jaxon is sometimes a super affectionate person. He wants to come up and hug you. He'll hug up on a complete stranger sometimes and just start playing with your hair. And so for people like, what do you know our boundaries, right? We have us as adults, we have boundaries. You don't just walk up to another adult and start playing with their hair.
Yeah.
But because he cognitively has not learned those boundaries yet, other people need to know, if other people knew, then you have a little bit more, okay, no, not at this moment, thank you. And you can kind of redirect them in a nicer way. But with young kids, when I see it, they don't know. They're going to go full speed. Like, what are you doing? You're crazy. Why? Blah, 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 blah. And now that kid is just getting hit with arrows and darts. And it's like, what is wrong with me?
Yeah.
Why do people not? And if they don't know and they're not working through it, and if parents aren't helping them, it is detrimental. And I see it in school. I'm K8, so I see how impactful it is when the kids don't know. And there was a young lady in my summer program who I finally was able to get an IEP on her and see, okay, she has autism. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna. And this was before my son. So I'm like, hey, we want to acknowledge this. Hey, let's talk about it, right? Let's talk about, because at this point I knew autism and autism awareness, but again, not so much like to the point of where I know it now. So I'm like, hey, let's talk about what that looks like, what that means. Some people do something different. Some people have interactions differently. So we want to be this, that, and the third, and trying to just kind of help them on a basic level, because I hadn't really looked into it. But I could tell that the way that they interacted with her was based on her autism, was based on how she interacted with them socially. And so knowing that she was on the spectrum, it was one of the things for me to try to help navigate that for the kids. And so when you are flying blind, it is you're setting your kids up for failure.
Yeah.
I want to jump in because I don't want to get too far away from the news got broken to you, the diagnosis happened. I want to dive into you two. So they dropped the bomb on you. You knew it was a possibility. Doctor says it, walks out the door. what happens? What do you say to each other?
It is so because she spotted it and then I spotted it, but she was first. Because we were anticipating it, it sucked to hear it, but you were prepared.
Okay.
It's one of those things where you can see the storm coming, you're boarding up your windows and everything, and then it hits and you're looking at the damage, but you knew it was coming. You did your best to prepare for it, but you still have to deal with the aftermath.
Yeah.
And that's where we were. It was broken glass, roof missing. What next?
What a great description, man. Wow.
I say for me, the exact that, because we had conversations of like, okay, if this is what we're gonna do. But I think in the back of my mind, I was like, well, it's not that, so it's gonna be fine. We don't have to worry about it. But then when we got the official diagnosis, I immediately was like, okay, what we got to do? Let's set this up. Let's do this. I didn't initially take the time to process, and I even remember the doctor being like, she said, he has autism spectrum disorder. I'll give you a couple minutes to kind of process that. And I was like, I'm good. So what's next? And I equated that to, we have with the older boys, they play sports and they say they want to do these things. So it's like, Jeremiah or Johnathan, for example, he's like, I want to play catcher. So, okay, let's get him a trainer. Let's take him get that work in. Let's do this. Jeremiah.
Let's borrow some equipment from Rene.
Yeah. And then same with Jeremiah, like he wants to do these things. Okay, let's go get you some receiver training and do all these things.
Shout out to Lexi, by the way.
So for me, I'm kind of like, I was thinking like, in this case, if something he's struggling with, what do we do to help him?
Mm-hmm.
What I did not understand is that could be a lifelong
great
endeavor.
Call. You're right.
I didn't go into being a mother prepared to let me not say that, because I think at the end of the day, I would do anything for my children.
Of course.
But having the other two experiences, seeing them now growing into these independent personalities, I wasn't prepared for Jaxon to potentially have to live with me for the rest of his life.
Yes.
Me have to care for him for the rest of his life.
Wow.
Now, if something happens to one of them and that happened, they get injured or something like that, that's different. But he was born this way. So then after I took a beat, after we got everything, services running and all those things, when I would have struggle days, like days where were really hard with him, I would just sit in that, and then I kind of started going through a depression. And in that depression, I felt like I start running those things in my mind like, well, I'm older, so maybe because I was older, statistics say having children at an older age, 34, they put me borderline geriatric pregnancy, and I was like, that's disrespectful. Because I think it's like 35 and up. But then this was my third child, so things were different. And my pregnancy was fair. I mean, having two other children, he was very low in my pelvic. I got put on modified bed rest. Then he was born 5 weeks premature.
And then true transparency, we didn't together know how to handle that pregnancy. Because like I said, it wasn't something we expected. It was like, did that play a part?
Yeah.
Right. Was I too stressed?
Because there was stress and we weren't as excited. We were trying to figure things out. And so that starts to weigh on her as well. And me as well too.
Yeah. So I start asking all these questions to myself and all these things, but then in the midst of it, like I still have to be functional. I still have two other children. I have my husband, and so I think for a lot of my response was just, I'm just gonna put all the emotional stuff on the back burner and just focus on what I can do right now.
Yeah.
And right now, I can take him to these therapies. I can try to do the work at home. I can take all these classes. I can do all this research. Try this supplement and try this and do that. And that's kind of where I put my focus on. But when I did that, I felt like I suppressed a lot of the emotions, and then that caused other issues that spilled over into other areas of my life where it was hard for me to then deal with other situations because I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, all I got capacity for right now is this.
Yes.
Back to the protecting my peace. I don't got time for none of that other
Yes.
stuff because
Yes.
at this point, what's in front of me is too difficult for me to handle. And I'm thankful for my community and my tribe because the people who understood, they understood that it wasn't me being just
A brat, difficult.
right, and having people gave me a lot of grace.
Yeah.
And then the folks that didn't
Yep.
got to go.
And,
So
and I love that, and that's what I think. This is a big part of this part of the podcast because understanding the dynamic of you two. That's why I want to. You can go on, and we will continue to do that on Jaxon. But I'm really curious about you. Has Jaxon and his diagnosis, has it changed your relationship? Talk about being the parent here and being husband and wife.
Yeah, there's a completely different level of attentiveness as a husband when you see, because to really set it up, behind closed doors is what nobody sees.
I know,
right? And we've talked about, like, man, we need to have a camera in the house. We need to show this because it's the periods of he can't sleep and he's crying for an hour and a half, 2 hours in the middle of the night. It's the tantrums that you can't find answers to and you have no idea how to help him process out of it, right? It's all the stuff that people don't often see that started to weigh on her, and me as well. It's just like, dude, you're like, I need you to shut it down, bro. It's 3 a.m. Like, we got to go to work. We got to do X, Y, and Z. Like, come on, man. Like, you try to take him for a drive. So you're thinking all the process on all these things of, like, come on, man. And when you start to see your spouse and how it affects them, like I said, it's just kind of the antennas start to go up a lot. So it's coming home and seeing, a house that's been hit by a tornado, because Jaxon is in everything. And, you're like, no words, just go pick up. Because if you walked in on it, that means that she's already been home watching.
Wow.
On top of this, get under this, over here, and he's over here, and he's over here. I'm trying to work. Go sit him down. Get your kid, right? So you can see that you don't even have to. You can just walk in and just you pick up on it as a husband now. And so my focus has been super heightened, where it's like, okay, I got him. I'll take him with me. If I got to go somewhere to go do something, and I know I can bring him in an environment where he can, flourish, and I can still do what I need to do, I'll take him just to give you a break, just to allow you some time of peace. Coming home and you're trying to just cook, clean, and do everything that you can just so you can have a break. Like, there's oftentimes I'll walk in, see him doing what he's doing, and she's in the room working because she moved her work desk into the room so that you could actually close the door and have some peace. I'll go in there and I just close the door. Yeah. I hit the gate, I close the door, and I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, she's cut off. Yeah. Johnathan and Jeremiah come in. What do you need? What do you need? What do you need? What do you need? We need to know. Okay, you can ask me. Go over here. This is what you got to do. You got to go somewhere. I'll take you. I got you. It's she needs her moment. Yeah. And it's because, and I think you have to realize those things. And for us, in her situation, it's working from home. So because of that, you're the one with him at the house the most. Yes. Right? I still get to go to an office. We have times when I get to work from home, but for the most part, I prefer to be in the office. I have to go out to look at sites. I go and meet with my team. So I'm out. And so when I come home, even though I want to hit that rest and chill button from my work day, I know that I can't. I got to now evaluate my house and go, what? First question is, how was he? How's he? Yeah, he had a good day. Okay, cool. We good. We ain't on DEFCON 4. Okay, we good. But I can look and see when there's not, and it's like, okay, let's just go into takeover mode and just exclude her from everything. Try to just give her peace. Try to give her rest. If she needs to run and go do something, I got it. Even though sometimes it's like, I'm not trying to do that, but I know what you've been through. So, take him to practice. You realize I'm coaching, right?
Like, just
Okay, all right.
you can
I'll
do that.
take him. Like I've taken him with me. I haven't taken him to baseball, but I'll take him to soccer.
Yeah.
And because we're out a little bit more open space, and so I can let him run before I need to go chase him down.
Yeah.
So, but I've taken him to soccer, and it's just like and then it's like, but at the same time, selfishly, I'm like, I can't coach with Jaxon here.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but I'm like, I know what she's been through today. So for me, it's just trying to be more attentive.
Yeah.
Than anything.
And you are, though. I mean, I feel like I've tell everybody this. Actually, today is our 16th wedding anniversary.
Oh,
It is.
congratulations.
And I feel like when I, big him up a little bit, I always tell folks, like, I have an amazing partner in the fact that he's always so quick to be... He's always quick to put other people before his needs. And even that's in, like, so many other things. But I feel like he is good at seeing the fact that the things that I struggle with, and then he speaks to those areas. And I always say, like, I picked a great partner to be the father to my children because, I remember when the boys were younger and a lot of my other friends, we all were having kids at the same time. They're like, my husband doesn't want to give them a bath. He doesn't want to make them dinner. I'm like, Ramon does all of that.
Yeah.
Damn.
And more, you know?
Those dudes hated you.
I know, right? And I feel like he's always been so hands-on that sometimes when he's not, I'm like, bruh, wait, what? Is it a new moon or something? Because you're supposed to be here. But, he is. So I think we have always said from the beginning of our relationship, like, we are friends. We built our relationship on friendship, and then it just grew into, the intimacy and love and all that stuff. But I value Ramon in the sense of that when he can see it in my face, he's like, no questions asked. Like,
even at the games, like you see, like,
yeah.
Sometimes I'll peek around and then I'll come out the dugout to go get Jaxon, like, just because I'm seeing her chase him around, and I'm just like, I don't want that to be a stress, because she wants to sit and watch the game. So it's like you're just kind of constantly like, okay, we good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we good?
Be on
good?
pins and needles
so,
all the time. But I think we try to keep the lines of communication open. And then, too, I had to recognize that being the mother and his wife, that ultimately some of that child rendering and that the household stuff falls on me. That's just natural, right? But I also it took me a minute to get out of my own, like, self-pity, I guess you want to say, but to recognize that he has his struggles too, this is his son. And, of course we have 3 sons, but I remember when we found out we were pregnant with Jeremiah, and he was like, it's a boy. And I was like, sir, you don't know that. You do not know that. And he's like, it's a boy. I already know. His name's going to be Jeremiah. And I was like, okay. And, and for him, it was just the pride of having the son, right? And then, of course, when we had the second son, we wanted a girl so bad.
that was going to be one and done.
Oh,
Boy,
so
girl,
bad.
cool.
And then we got Johnathan, and I was like, it's great. I'm good. I have brothers. I'm used to boys. I just always been around boys. So it's nothing new to me. But I think when I started to see that emotionally it was weighing on him too, then I had to say, okay, it's not just all about me.
Yeah.
Like, we're both his parents, and this impacts us both. So then we have to now then be intentional about checking in with one another and being like, okay, is there anything, like, when he wants to go golf or something, I try not to harp about it because I'm like, he needs his time too. He needs his time to get away.
Hold on. No, I'll jump in real quick. Let's slow down now and just repeat what you just said. But say it slow. Attention, ladies.
Yes, I mean, because I know I like
them
to, and
golf.
Listen, I always been the type where it's like, because I like to go hang out with my friends and get my pedicures, and I like to go to the spa, and I like to go shopping, I like to do those things. And so I'm always in the mindset of like, if I let him do what he wants to do, then he can't complain when I want to do what I want to do.
And I'm thinking, if I let her do what she wants to do,
exactly.
she can't complain
So
when I
think,
get ready to do what
just
I want
in that, like, we've just had to maintain the level of just partnership. It's a partnership.
We've all had to gravitate towards Jaxon.
Yes, even the boys.
The whole family.
Yes, big time.
Even
He's
the boys.
pulled us all in closer to be more intentional.
Wow. So the first
go ahead.
thing I'm thinking is, Well, a lot of stuff to unpack and listen to this story. I feel is like for humans, it's in our nature to want to be in control of everything. That's a human thing.
Yeah.
We want to know what's going on. We want to know what lies ahead.
Yep.
God has bigger plans for us
Yep.
that a lot of times we can't even see or understand or fathom until many, many years later.
Yeah.
Right. And as I'm listening to your story, this very well just feels to me like what I would say is a God story.
Yeah.
In the sense that you don't really know it because you're navigating it as you go. It's hard to process. You wouldn't have thought this would happen, but essentially what it's doing is, I guarantee you, it's making your two boys more mature.
Yeah.
Right?
I have a story for
They're
that.
they're probably taking on stuff that maybe normal 11 and 14 is age. 11 and 14-year-olds wouldn't take on.
Yep.
Number two is it's bringing you guys closer together naturally, right? There's probably some moments that are not perfect moments.
Exactly.
Because again, you're human.
Yeah.
There's going to be times where you're tired, stressed, you name it. But ultimately, it's probably bringing you guys closer together as a family. And then the other thing that I wanted to say, I forget who told me this, but this is funny coming from me because I'm not married yet. I have a beautiful partner who is amazing. And as I'm listening to you guys celebrating your 16th anniversary, the best piece of advice I got is from somebody is, before you decide to get married, ask yourself, is this somebody that you'd go into business with?
Wow.
That's a good one, huh?
That is
That
a
is
good
a good
one.
one.
And in listening to both of you, I'm like, man, they sound like good business partners.
Yeah.
We have said that from day one. Like, there's been times we have not liked each other, we have not gotten
Get
along,
on my
but at the
nerves.
end of the day, we are great partners, and our ultimate goal is like, what do we have to do to get this done?
Yeah.
And for us, when I say this, what do we have to do to help our family run functionally? And at the end of the day, you play your role, I play my role. Sometimes those roles even intertwine, and it just about the partnership. When you fall, I'm there to pick you up or carry the slack, because we've had situations where one of us has lost our jobs. And I remember when he lost his job, and Jeremiah was like 18 months old, and I had just got my job with the state. And from there, it was like, he stayed home. He kept Jeremiah. I would come home to meals. The house was clean and all the things. And I'm like, I think I
roles
should
were
get used to
reversed.
it. But and that's in my mind was like, this is what we have to do right now because of where we're at. And when you do get married, you go into it with that mindset of like those vows that you take for good, bad, rich, poor, good health, bad, whatever the case is, those things are true because you're going to have those ebbs and flows of life of where everything is not going to be just, oh, I love you so much and I just want to be with you all the time. No, sometimes I can't stand you and I don't want to look at you today. But at the end of the day, I made a vow and I made a commitment and to be your partner and to walk this thing called life. And I think especially when you do that with the mindset of like when God's in the center of it and you guys are coming together, you're always going to meet each other if you're all continuously seeking God. And so I think that this story with us with Jaxon is ultimately a big part of our testimony. I think that God is definitely using us to be an example. It is hard when you're going through it because you're like, I don't want to be the example today, God. I just want it to be easy. I just want it to be easy today. But
and we've definitely had those moments. But you hit the nail right on the head. Like the conversations that we've had is this is the journey, and it sucks right now. Like yes, we're in the wilderness. Like I said, the behind the door stuff that happens with Jaxon and going through his ebbs and flows sucks. But we know that there's going to be a great outcome for this. Like we know that we're going to look back and go and somebody's going to say, oh, he was, he's autistic. He's on the spectrum. Yeah, sure.
You don't even know
He
what
was on it tough.
Man.
he don't look like what he been through.
You don't look like it. And that's just the faith that we've had as far as trying to look through, kind of not walking, the old adage, that old scripture is, walking by faith and not by sight, is not looking at what we're dealing with right now and just knowing what the end is going to be. And so
exactly.
that's the part that it's tough, but that I think we're doing it as best,
Best we can.
But
And
that is tough.
Yeah,
It's tough.
it
is
helps even
tough.
with the older boys. Like you have mentioned, it's helping them to be greater humans, right? I remember when we got the diagnosis, we sat them down and we were like, we want to talk to you about something. And but even before when I got pregnant, it's like, we're gonna have a baby on the way. The baby's gonna need a lot of attention. That doesn't mean we don't love you any less. All that. So then we get diagnosis, and it's like, okay, now. Remember
Needs
when
more
we
attention.
we said he's gonna need some attention. He's gonna need a lot of attention,
Yes.
and it's gonna take. Not that we want to take it away from you. We want to be able to do everything that you want to do, but we also have to be attentive to this needs. And I will never forget Jeremiah looked me in my face and said, "Mom, Jackson's okay. He doesn't have a disability. He has a different ability." And then I said, "Oh, like my head cracked." I'm like, "What do you mean by that?" And he was like, "Well, he's my brother, and it doesn't matter if he can't do these things, but he's gonna be different, and I love him no matter what." And I just literally started
Yeah, she
bawling,
started
crying, and I was like, the fact that at that time Jeremiah was like 10, and I'm like,
Gosh.
I'm like, at 10 years old, my son was able to articulate the fact that we all are different, but as long as we love one another,
And to double
that's all that
down,
matters.
we were at his godparents' house swimming.
Oh yeah,
And we had friends over and some family friends and stuff, and they were hanging out, and they don't know, right? So they're asking questions. He's in the pool, and Jeremiah's in the pool with them, and he's kind of holding on to him and stuff. And they're like, "Why isn't he talking? Why doesn't he do this when I'm coming?" And Jeremiah, real quick, without hesitation, well, he's autistic, and so what that means is that he's going to do things differently. He might not be speaking right now. He's not trying to be
literally
mean, but he just does. He hasn't learned how to do it yet, so he learns a little slower. So you just have to be patient.
Yeah. So when you said I hit the nail on the head, I said the word maturity. That is the
Yes,
definition.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's two things that we could all learn from. A couple things I've heard. I learned so much from kids because, like, remember when you were mentioning Rene will tell you right now who's the most emotional friend that you have in your circle.
You got the winning cup, man.
Because here's the difference between Rene and I, right? Is I am such a words of affirmation. Can I get a hug? And Renee's like, I'm like, man, how you know that post that I made a couple days ago? Yeah. Is there a reason that you didn't leave a comment? Bro? Like, it hurt me. I thought we were friends. But all jokes aside,
That's funny.
when you were mentioning Jaxon, like running up, hugging, I would. We could all take note of that.
Yeah.
right?
We live in a world where like everyone just keeps their head down and nobody wants to like just good genuine love just walking
Yeah.
up to the
It's strange to
stranger.
say hi to people. It's like complete strangers.
Isn't
Like,
that
"Hey, how you
crazy?"
doing?" They're like,
They look at you like you're weird. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh,
And then
like,
the second,
whoa.
and then the story, just hearing you share the story of that, it's like that's just a 10-year-old that doesn't have all the junk that adults have.
right.
They don't have all like the conditioning because the older we get, the more
conditioned,
trauma,
yep.
the more trauma
Yep.
we go through, the more shit we go through.
Yep.
I was that kid that would bully from time to time. And then as I got older, I've spent so much time at Leah Tata Floyd Elementary School, volunteer there. Oh, like
I know that school very well.
Big
We-
time.
We do work with them.
Okay, cool. And I've like taken in some of the kids that they're probably not probably they are now in high school, but I've got to witness some of that, and I'm like grabbing them by their shirt. I know this is not the proper way.
Don't worry, I do the same thing.
Yeah.
I have my special kids that I have a different relationship with too.
Yeah, but you just you as you grow older and you have more experiences, you learn what's right and what's wrong, and you learn what it all comes back down to, which is just we could all be learning from kids, and
Absolutely.
for Jeremiah having that moment, man, that must have been that was it for you guys just to hear that.
It gave me the reassurance that we were going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like they weren't going to feel like, I mean, they might have these feelings where they feel like, well, Jaxon, it's all about Jaxon. But that's why we also go so hard with the things that they want to do. We try to let them know, like, we're going to do this, but you got to put forth the effort.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to sacrifice our weekends and you out here playing like
Yep.
shit. or you're not going out in the garage and putting your work in or doing things you need to do. And so,
yeah, we have a very simple motto in my house, and I tell them when it comes to sports, I care less about the wins and losses. I care about your effort. If you're putting in the work and doing what you need to do, more than likely those wins will start to fall in line. But if you're out there not giving your best effort and, you know, BSing and not putting in the work, well, no, we're not doing anything. I'm not going out there to waste my time with that. So,
Chris, you know what that is? And it's a recurrent theme on this podcast. That's the standard. It's a family where the standard is the standard. That's quality human beings have raised family units this way. And then you hear the stories like Jeremiah at 10 years old. There's no question why. The standard is the standard. I commend you two for it.
Thank you.
Yeah, the one thing also that's I'm thinking about is just you want to live a life like God wants us to have a life where we're not stagnant,
right?
Where we're lazy, where we're coming home. Like if I look at a lot of the marriages that I've seen that haven't worked, it's because one or the other just was just like, this is where I'm at, and so I'm also thinking too that you were kind of built for this in a sense, based on your athletic background. That's a piece of it. But what I mean is like when you put the pieces of the puzzle together, it's like I look at this guy and he's like, it's very regimented. He wakes up at 4 a.m. He watches what he eats. You know, all of these things are all pointing to things that give you energy, right? To be in a household with 3 kids, one of them being autistic, I'm imagining you got to protect that. You got to be, you have to be very conscious about. I'm getting my exercise in. I'm eating. I'm eating, which is also going to lead me to the next question, which is the number one most important thing in my household, which is when's the last time that you guys have you been able to get away? And just maybe
we haven't. I mean, well, the last few years since COVID, we made it intentional to do family vacations because we felt like we wanted to. Well, before, like I said, we got married young and started having kids young, so it was like we always felt like we financially couldn't. Yeah. And then I remember before Jaxon, we told the boys like we're trying to buy a house, so. Once we buy the house, we're going to go on a family vacation. But we got to save for this house right now. So we were intentional about that. I remember as soon as we bought the house, then I got pregnant, and then we bought the house. Jaxon was born. But then COVID hit, and it was like, now we can't go on a family vacation. So I think in 2020, we went to Arizona to go visit some friends, and, you know,
James and them.
We were still like, we just quarantined with them. We hung out, whatever. And then we took our first family vacation in 2021. We went to Hawaii, and that was like huge. For us at least. And
as a kid, it never went on family vacation.
Right. Neither did I. I mean, and then, so every year since then, we did
Disneyland. We did do Disneyland.
Yeah, every year we've done a trip where it's like a family thing. So I told him this year, I'm like, we got a wedding invitation in the mail for a wedding in Mexico in October. And I'm like, we going.
Yeah.
It says like, no kids.
She's like, we going alone.
That's what that's what I was trying to get at. And I was like, oh crap, is this going to be like an offensive thing? No, when I said vacation, I wasn't talking about with the kids.
Yeah, no, that's what
I was talking about where's the recharge for you two, because as I'm listening to your story, that also has to play a part in it too. As I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, all right, what point in time
do we
get?
Yeah,
that hasn't happened yet.
But it's happening this year.
Mexico, October.
Yeah.
Even in July.
And I think we understand that it's needed. And so I think that's why, to her point of like, she's like, we're doing this, you know? But I think we have been able to, which is also, I think, is important for, because I also hear a lot of couples with kids on autism, you know, there's a lot of separation and there's a lot of, you know, things that happen as far as conflict in the house with kids with the stress, and it breaks people. And I think one of the things that we have found solace in is traveling together as a family. I think that does bring a different sense of joy, being able to travel together as a family. But recognizing, you know, us and saying, okay, we need to be able to, because that was the part when she was kind of talking earlier, which she just didn't say it, which is selfishly knowing, am I stuck with Jaxon for the rest of my life? The selfish part about that was my time.
Yeah.
You know, the empty nest, let's travel,
Yeah,
me do
yeah.
me, you know, so that there's that level of it, and understanding that has to be an important piece to this puzzle, as well as finding that. And so I think for us now, in order to achieve that, I think it's even more so the circle that we have around us, the family that we have around us, and bringing them in to the fold of who Jaxon is and how Jaxon works, so that those opportunities can be taken, so that we can rely upon our family and our tribe to help, you know, bridge that gap and hold down the fort for us to have that
the time
time,
away.
that independent time. So
We do small things. We do date nights, and we
Who,
try.
who watches? Sorry to cut you off, but who watches when you go do a date night?
Oh, Jeremiah.
We usually leave them at home. It's easy.
Her sister, my sister.
Yeah.
My sister's been up and stayed with us for periods of times, and she's like
Yeah.
right on it. Her sister's out here, has done it. Her mom's come down to watch, or if
The
we're
godparents.
going to a trip, you know, we had to go play baseball up in Modesto or Ripon, and she's in Stockton, so she's like, bring him over to me. I got him.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
you guys
awesome.
go enjoy.
So that
your time.
helps
So-
because
Yes.
that can be a stress too. If you feel like automatically, I feel like I don't want to put a burden on anyone,
Of course.
because he requires sometimes a lot of attention, and I don't want anyone to feel like if they can't do it, in putting that on them. I know people offer, but then it's still like, dang, you don't
Yeah,
really
you're
know what
thinking-
you don't really know what's going to entail though. So
You've
I-
only seen 20%.
yeah, so that plays a fear in it, and then it does hinder of us being able to have the quality time
Yeah.
together. So we try to be intentional about doing date nights, and we take turns in planning those things. And sometimes date night is in the room, lock the door,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
don't bother us right now.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
those kind of things. But we he took on golfing during COVID, and because I seen he was so into it, I took an interest in it. And then when I took an interest, he got me clubs, and so
Yeah.
we'll go and
Oh,
do
I
like
got
9
excited when
holes.
She got into it.
Yeah,
great.
I
'Cause
love,
was like, that's
I
time for
love
us on the
golfing.
links. I love it. Once
I
I
do
figure out
too.
golf and I'm out there, I'm like, I love this.
I'm like,
Yeah.
we can't
So
go,
I was
we
like,
can't
if I
go to
can
the
get
golf
her out
range
there,
today?
because people at first it was crazy because some people are like, you got your wife
Yeah.
clubs? That is your time, and I'm like, yo, you don't know. Like, I actually have a great time with
have a
my
good
wife out here.
time.
Like,
It's
I-
amazing when you love
is
your wife and you
exciting.
want to be around your
Right.
wife,
I
man.
was
It's
like,
not
it is
weird,
exciting
okay?
to have her out there because she's learning. So I'm like, I'm trying to teach her everything. I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, I just learned this. Let me help you. It might work. I'm like, I have a great time with it out there. So
We'll do a date night for us. Will be like
she shut me down though because I really tried to go. 'Cause
Oh, yeah,
we
for-
were supposed to have a tournament this weekend, and so we've made some changes, and so we're not going anywhere this weekend. And so I was like, well, babe, now we can actually do something for our anniversary because it was all boys, and so I was like, you want to go golfing this weekend? And she was just like,
I was like, nah.
no, and I was like, and a little piece of me went, and I was like, dang,
I'd rather go get a
that
couples
was our
massage.
thing. So, but I got right on the sticks though. I was like, right on my phone. I was like, I'm calling somebody. I'm golfing. I finally got a weekend. Somebody
Go-
get me
go
out
do
on
you.
the green.
The rain's coming though, man. Sorry to be a.
Come on, don't
Yeah,
So
so
I'm
see,
sorry to hate
That's
on
a
you,
Debbie
man.
Downer.
Listen, man.
couples massage is on deck. Yeah,
Yeah, we got a couple of massages.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So, but it takes intentionality at the
Yep.
end of the day with anything, and that's just even in marriage. It just takes intentionality, and sometimes the effort is not 100%.
Yep.
But I think that's where grace comes in and understanding the give and take of it all, and so that's ultimately I'm in this thing for life. I mean, as much as I feel like when things have been hard, I'm like, can I really do this? And then I like try to picture my life, and I'm like, but I can't picture my life without him in it next to me, like being an active partner.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, whatever is not going right or whatever the problem is, it doesn't overshadow the fact that like this is my life partner, and we're gonna figure it out at the end of the day.
Amazing, amazing. We'll start to wrap up. I want to bring more value to the people that are listening that aren't as familiar with being around autism. For people who don't know what like and haven't been around, what would you like them to hear and to understand from your point of view? So
That's a great question. We have a friend of ours, Denise and Charles Witter. They had twins, and one of them is on the spectrum. And you know, I reached out and we talked, and I asked him that same question. I was like, you know, I had the opportunity to talk about autism, and I was like, you know, what's your story too?
yeah,
You know, what is it that you go through? Because Chloe and them are how old now?
They're 3.
3. And it was literally the exact same thing. It was love, patience, understanding. We look from a lens when we see kids and we think that's a normal tantrum. Get that kid up. What are you doing? Have them. Why are they acting like that? Nip that in the, you come with such just normal response, which is understandable. We've been trained that way for so long, right? And so I think one of the things that we have to do is kind of hit that pause button a little bit before we get ready to jump or speak on somebody's situation, and really have a moment to reflect and go, I don't know all of what's going on there. Outside looking in, that could look like a normal situation, but because I don't have the information, I shouldn't assume, right? And that's that old adage, when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. And it's like, so assumption has to go away a lot of the time when you're wanting to say something or speak on something, when you see something, because when we live in that realm of not understanding, and in my opinion, I think that's where a lot of hate comes from, is the lack of understanding, the lack of knowing, the lack of knowledge, seeing something different for the first time and being like, that's weird. And so, but once you get immersed in it or you've learned about it, it's not so weird anymore.
No.
And so that's the difficulty with autism, is because it is the puzzle pieces look different, and you might have a clear picture of what it should look like, but those pieces haven't been put together. And so just having that time to not speak so quickly about what you see. Jaxon has tantrums that look like just a normal toddler upset about stuff.
But there's something
There's
underlining.
something underneath. There's something
yeah.
underlining that even we don't know.
Yep.
It's is it too noisy? Is it you're hungry? Is it your body's just out of whack right now and out of balance? Are you just tired? There's so many questions that go through our heads that as we've learned him, we can start to figure out certain things. But when you're the outside looking in, it's easy to point to what looks normal, and it's easy to reference your own experiences of normality. But with the spectrum, it's really just taking time and like I said, taking a pause and a breath before speaking on something, and recognizing, and when seeing it, either taking the interest in finding out more about it if you're going to be wrapped around it or close to it, embracing those little nuances as well as part of it, and then supporting it. And we have people like the Jaxon and other family members and people that we hold dear to our heart who do that, who welcome and understand and don't jump to offense when they see things. Like my son loves playing in the water in his yard, and we know he is going to try to drink and eat and do all kind of crazy stuff, and it's not something you need to try to be drinking and eating. And
I do the same thing when I go to Rene's. I'm in the front yard, rolling around.
Right? But the beauty is they don't, right? It's not like, get your kid, man. Like, what is going, like, they're, come on, Jaxon, nope. They're redirecting faster than we are. And it's like, that's that understanding. That's that family.
We hope you get to put your guard down a little bit when you're around people who care about you.
Absolutely.
That's a big thing for us. So,
and that's a big thing for the spectrum. The guard is up
At all
so much as a
times.
parent, because
I can see it on you guys.
everybody, you're looking for the judgmental. You're looking for the stares, trying to get on a flight with a kid that's crying. You're thinking, I want him to be as quiet as you want him to be as quiet. Like, but this right here isn't just a normal cry.
Yeah.
Like, you got to give me a moment. Be patient. I'm working on it. I'm not just trying to let y'all hear this because I'm not trying to.
Yeah.
So there's a different level of anxiety that we go through when we're in those situations, trying to get on a plane, trying to go to somebody's house to just hang out.
Try to go to the grocery store.
To go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
To do basic everyday things, because you don't know when that trigger is going to happen, and you're working through the resources and trying out therapists who come to the house to help them through their cognitive delays, trying to help them through their social emotional interactions. You're going through all those things to build up to a standard that we've come accustomed to, and knowing how to interact with people and not be so close and giving people space and, you know, doing certain things as a routine. It's just not there for everybody that's on the spectrum. It's not something that is as wired as waking up at 4 a.m. and having that routine down and watching your regimen. He will go eat dirt as quickly as he'll eat a gummy bear. You know, so it's
a whole
those
nother
things.
thing.
But when he eats the dirt, he probably doesn't like it.
Oh no, he
doesn't
will
care.
tear down.
He
on
loves
it.
dirt.
He will.
Interesting.
He hasn't had an official. There's a term for it. It's like pica.
Yeah.
It's a disorder of
Like the
eating
eating
things that are
things.
not
Yep.
edible.
Yep.
And so he hasn't had an official
Wow.
diagnosis, but that was something the pediatrician said when I brought it to. He's
Yep.
like, I think you might have pica, so we have to go through another
You have
evaluation
to hold
for that.
through another-
But
yeah.
he eats edible things. Like I remember somebody had said something to me about some kind of issue or whatever, and I was like, that is shit I don't want to deal with. I'm dealing with real shit. My son's over here trying to eat his shit. Like, I don't care about none of that other stuff.
Yeah.
So, to one thing that I want people to take
Yes.
away from is that, again, the understanding, but if you're a parent, teach your children how to be kind. Like, I've joined other, support groups and things like that, and the stories that I hear about children and young people who experience just bullying and just such horrible things because other kids lack the understanding or
Yep.
the maturity. And then when you see the parents and you're like, oh, I see why.
Yep.
Yes.
And that's in every aspect, right?
sure.
It's just we as humans, like we're supposed to teach our children all these different things. But when it comes to individuals with disabilities, I would say just teaching them kindness at the end of the day. I have another story about Jeremiah. This kid is so unique, but he was like in maybe 3rd or 4th grade. And there was a student at the school who the child was a boy and liked to dress like a girl. And I asked Jeremiah, how does that make you feel? And he said, I really don't care. And I said, okay, but do you play with him? He said, well, he's not really my friend, so I don't play with him. I said, well, if you see anybody being mean to him, what would you do? And he said, I would go and tell them that was wrong. And I said, at the end of the day, you may not agree with his choices, you may not understand them, but you always show kindness and you show love. That's what God calls us to do. He calls us to love people. That's it.
Man.
We're not to judge them. We're not to put our opinions on them and draw judgment and all that. We're just to love folks. And you leave them where they're at and you love them. And so I think for me, when it comes to just parents in general, teach your children kindness and teach them love. If you are a parent with a child with a disability, just know that your child was made uniquely for you. And I had to learn that because, again, I was trying to take all of this advice from other people.
And
trying
you're
to
not alone.
You're not alone. And try to implement it and then be like, that doesn't work for us. And what works for us works for us. That's
Yes,
how,
right.
and the way we decide to move and navigate is because we've determined it works for us and our household.
Yeah.
So just find what works for you and then just stand on that. Like, at the end of the day, people are going to say what they want to say. They're going to have their opinions, and that's great. You can have that over there. But over here, for me and mine, we're going to do it this way because this is what works for us right now, because it changes too.
For sure.
So
Because you'll find similarities. Like, I've ran into parents with young kids with autism, and they'll talk about the picky eating and stuff like that. And the first thing out of their mouth was like, if my kid wants to have Doritos for breakfast,
absolutely,
I'm glad they're eating.
they're having Doritos.
Wow.
Like, I'm glad he's actually eating
something.
And
yes.
I sat back and I was like, amen. Like,
Yeah.
because I'm in the same boat. I
Yeah.
know that one really well. But to somebody else, you're like, Doritos for what is wrong? You need, that is not a here comes the normality of what you're used to, and then the judgment without really knowing this is all they're gonna eat.
Yeah.
And I need them to eat something. So I'm happy. That is a win that they're eating something. So it is when I say it's so unique, it is extremely unique. The nuances of the spectrum and little things that go on with it. And so it's standing on it. It's as a parent accepting it. It's knowing you're not alone. There are and the diagnosis is increasing.
We've seen it too, like even with the family with the Andrews.
Yes.
They have an older son,
Great
DJ,
family,
who is
exactly.
on the spectrum. He's now in the 7th grade.
Yes.
And I remember having conversations with Allie about that. And she'd be like, when DJ was Jackson's age, he did the same things. And then they seen him, progress as they've done things with him. So even looking to that and saying like, I know I'm not alone because I can see it right there in front of me. And so, and gleaning from that. And I mean,
DJ's
there's times I call
amazing
Allie
kid,
like,
too.
Allie, is this normal? Like, what is going on? And she's like, girl, yes. Or, well, DJ didn't have that experience because now they're experiencing things with him. He's approaching teenage years. And so things are changing with him and him. But she was like, when he was 4, oh yeah, he was doing those things. Or, or whatever. So finding community and finding support in any way that looks for you, and then just
Diagnose it.
yeah.
Get the help.
Get the help. I mean, I know some
Get the
people don't like to
support.
get diagnoses because it puts labels on them.
Right.
But for me, it was important because I wanted the resources. I wanted to be able to have something. And I think I needed something tangible in that sense of being like, I'm not crazy. There was something, and I was able to see it. And I thank God for the eyes to see it because I could have been naive to it. I could have just ignored it. And then, he could have been coming up on 5 now. And we're like, oh, there was something wrong.
Yeah.
I'm happy that we found out early.
Because
And
he's hit milestones. He's gotten so much better
Yes.
with stuff. Like the kid put his shoes on. When he's like, I'm ready to go outside. He's walked and gone to put his shoes on, and it's like we've never seen that before. And so it's like, okay, when. If you're like, he wants something to eat and you're like, okay, you got to go sit in your seat. He will walk over now and go climb up in his high chair and sit in his seat. And you're like, it's another win. So it's like these little things that are coming along, man. And so it's every little miracle that he does, every little win that he has, every little milestone, dude, is even more exciting than watching your kid walk for the first time.
That's
Exactly.
crazy.
It's 2 prior boys, like, I was like, I called them both. I was like, he's going to walk at this time. And I told Johnathan, I was like, Jonathan's going to walk at 9 months. I was already on it. I was like, he's
did
going to walk
too.
at 9 months. And sure enough, 9 months, I was like, walking. But Jaxon at school taking his lunch pail out his backpack and putting it at his desk to sit down and eat lunch, I'm doing backflips.
It's a win, yes.
I'm doing front flips
crazy,
and hitting gainers, and I'm like, dude, yes. It is a whole nother level of excitement. It is completely different because you're seeing a growth that takes some serious
And that folks say
work.
it's impossible.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing too, where you get the diagnosis and they're like, they'll never do this.
Yeah.
They'll never do this. And one example is Holly Pete Robinson and her husband, their oldest son, or one of their twins,
is on the spectrum.
the son, he's on the spectrum. And one of the things that they were told that he would never get gainful employment. And he got a job with the LA Dodgers, and he's had that job for like years since he was able to work
Amazing.
up until now. And now he's like in his 20s, and he's like, it's gainful. He has a job and it's great. So the things that people say that I think she calls it the never day, when you get the diagnosis and say he most likely won't do this, he'll never do this, never do this, and then when you see those things turning into, oh, he did it, then it gives you more hope to continue on, and then it helps you in those bad days. Like, okay, it's just a bad moment. We'll get past this, but we know more is to come. So. Yeah.
I love every bit of that, and to be honest, what a great way that you guys were able to wrap this up, bringing like huge, eye-opening things to people and what they should understand and get it from both of your perspective. I know for me, I'll just speak personally here. I feel so lucky to be around a family like you, a family like the Andrews, and it's opened my eyes big time. I'm obviously wearing something that you gave me today as well. In light of everything that we're going to be talking about today, and just to kind of wrap up what we're talking about here, we obviously have been able to bring a lot of incredible people here. Legacies for people who are in the spotlight is one thing, and we get to celebrate those people, but the legacy that you two are building is by far, in a way, just something so amazing. And it's trickling through everybody that you're around. So I feel incredibly lucky to be around you guys, the Andrews, because you're just an example for our family, my kids, everything like that. So I want to commend you for it. To wrap back to what you said, Chris, having a partnership like this is like a business, going into business.
Yeah.
Well, Payne Incorporated, the stock is up and up and up. You're changing lives. So we
Thank
want to
you.
thank you
appreciate
for
it.
joining us in the lounge today.
Thank you for
No,
the
we
opportunity.
thank you guys for the opportunity. This we did not take this lightly to come here today. You guys do a great job. You guys have opened up a floor, and it was an honor to hear you guys say yes to this topic. And so we thank you both.
Yes,
Thank you guys. I know for me, I've become a better person just from listening
Aw.
to your story
Exactly.
and just taking notes, man. It's like we can always be sharpening and doing better. And it's funny how you were like the key points that you mentioned. These are just basic fundamental key points that humans need to do a better job at.
Yeah.
Right? Just be slow to judge, just quick to listen. Don't speak, love your neighbor. These are all fundamentals that I think that the older we get, sometimes we get further away from. So thank you for reminding us of that, and it was a pleasure meeting both of you guys.
And final
Pleasure.
thought from the woman who drives it all. I would love for your last statements as well.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, when I think about my life and the things that I've experienced, that it ultimately led me to this point. It's ironic that Jaxon is non-speaking because I felt like in my past I was a little bit more passive and like letting stuff kind of like I don't need to address that and all that stuff. And then now I'm kind of like I have to be a voice for him, and so advocacy is very important, and that just goes in any area of your life. We have to advocate for one another. We have to support one another. And even if we don't understand what that means, we can just show up with just our mere presence, just being there. And so I just leave everyone with the fact of love God, love your neighbor, and seek for understanding. There's a lot of information out there. Our good friend Google. You can just type in autism, you'll get a wealth of information, and then you start just weeding through it. But April is Autism Awareness Month.
Yes.
And in April, we wear blue. So just you can, on April 2nd is the day, and then throughout the month. But I encourage everyone to wear blue and honor and support, and just thank you. Yeah.
Amazing.